Alright, briefly going to go over the materials and the tooling used for this project. This is just some 16 gauge mild steel cold rolled stuff. I cut this out with chisels, bench shear, files, that sort of thing. The pattern I just kind of not freehanded, I drew it on a piece of paper first, but the handle is not based off of anything directly. And this is a 10-inch disc that I cut out. Same material, 16 gauge, mild steel, cold rolled stuff. We're going to dish out the center here on the swage block underneath. Probably planish it on one of my ball stakes. And, well, I mean, we'll get into the rest of it in here in a second, but cut out this material. Sure, you don't need to see that to understand. You know, you can cut out metal. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. And as far as for tooling, just a ball peen hammer. I'm going to be using the flat face of this. This will be for rolling the edge and other peening things that I probably won't even use the ball end on it. Just needed something with a flat face. This is a heavy raising or dishing hammer. I use this one because it has an extra length. You can get into the depths of things a lot easier. Two different sizes. I think this is a 2-pound hammer. But one of these, that'll be used to dish out in this form right here. Now I've got I think it used to be a masonry chisel of some sorts that I've rounded over. I'm going to attempt to have a lot of material on the edge that's rolled over so that I can then go and stamp in sort of roped design. You'll see that if it gets to that. And then this definitely is a masonry chisel that I have modified pretty heavily. So hopefully it will focus. There you go. So it's rounded over on the end there, and then there's a slight angle going like that to help support the material. And I'm going to be using this to attempt to roll the edge on the buckler. I haven't used this stake yet for that, but I've been having a hard time just doing it over the edge of my anvil, but I'll be using this, my swage block for the big dishing form there, and then normal anvil, which, you know, any anvil will work for it. silly guy. I just started getting cracking on rolling that edge, and I forgot to record any of it. I apologize. I've got other videos where I've got edge rolling. It's pretty simple. For a round object like this, it might be a little bit more difficult, but you take a curved surface and you start working that edge over it. You tapping it over. You'll see a little bit more of what that's kind of like with this piece here in just a moment. And then as it gets to about there, I just start working it from in the air with nothing supporting it. It's folded, and rolled, and then I'll start tapping it down to have it seat against the steel. Um, it's not perfect round, but that's probably the nicest one I've done. If I remember, I'll put a picture of the first buckler that I did on screen here, and you can see, you know, how far I've come along with it, or at least I think I've come a pretty far way. Um, but the body of this is, I'd say, just about finished. Maybe some more planishing around here, around the where the raised portion intersects the flat portion. But we'll address that if that needs to be done. I think I'm just going to blacken it with some paste wax, uh, heat it up, blacken it. But let's work on that handle real quick. I'm doing the same thing with this. I've got a radiused grind on this corner of my anvil, and I'm just going to keep working it. Unfortunately, it's kind of the anvil being like a 90 degree is kind of difficult for me, so I might have to go to a stake or possibly even take this to the swage block. I'll be able to see it is coming along. I'm not trying to curve this whole thing, just the sort of the wings of this handle. It's just a little uneven still. I'm starting to get a twist in it, and that's not ideal. I've got one end gripped in the vise, and I've got a flat-mouthed enough pair of tongs. I'm hoping I can just yeah, see? Keep on working it. I might have to get a punch or something to try to set these in, because they're supposed to be closed in on themselves, but we'll see what happens. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, why am I doing it like this? Why not just have a flat piece of steel and then add some like cord or some leather or some wood? Would that not be easier to do if you just wanted to put a simple handle on it? I'm going to say no. At least for myself, I have much more comfort just doing this, swinging a hammer, not having to grind or cut and shape and line up holes with this method. That twist is from me hammering something unevenly, for sure. Tucked in tight enough for my liking. I'm going to straighten it out again, and then we're going to get it fixed to the buckler. One problem I did run into with this is my unpadded hand, and I've got small hands. It's like pressed against that steel, so that needs to be deeper, or this needs to be offset some to where it can give a bit more of a gap. But that's easy enough to do. I think in the future, I'll make another handle like this. I need to make those necks a little bit longer, or that the boss portioned larger. But there we go. You could get a padded hand in there if your hands are small like mine. Especially if you do this thumbs up grip. Be very easy. You're not going to be able... I know some of these bucklers you can almost like side shield it because it's hanging so far off. But this might even be ideal, so that way you have to point the thing forward and not angle it a bunch, which causes you to get hand sniped. Ask me how I know. So what we're going to do is we're going to poke holes on the handle. We're going to mark the spots on the buckler. We're going to do a rivet at a time, so that way we can get everything lined up and situated how we want. What happens whenever you peen one rivet, it generally warps everything involved. It makes it a little bit more difficult to get it how you laid out if you went and punched everything. You know, Todd, and I didn't really plan this project out as well as I should have, but that's how projects tend to go. Especially whenever you're trying to record a video with it at the same time. I'm going to try to do that rolled rope edge looking thing. I've actually started a little bit on it. Might be hard to see. I'm going to use the same chisel I used to start the roll. And that's just because it's a little bit more interesting than the chisel I mentioned earlier in this video. There's more of a sharp and then a smoother transition. So that might look better. Now, I'm not measuring anything. I'm just kind of doing it in quarters, 8/16, 30 seconds. You know, just eyeballing the middle point. And I think I'm going to do that until I don't want to do that anymore. But having it face me, putting a 45 on there, and then giving it a sharp blow in the wrong direction. Here, hold on. There we go. And I'm just going to go that all the way around the rim until I think it has enough to be noticed. So now what we're going to do is we will blacken this, and I decided to blacken the handle. The polished look didn't really match up well with this forged scale covered thing. Alright, I got some oily, waxy goop I've been working on. I'm going to kind of put some of it on there. I'm trying to blacken this thing. Alright, let's start on fire. Oh, this one here got too hot. I need to go back in. You know what? Still, I think it's everywhere. Alright, here's the finished product. I used some brass rivets. It's important to note that I set these one at a time, so I drilled this hole, riveted it, drilled that hole, riveted it, and I went back and forth on each one, and that prevents it from sliding around if you're trying to get them 6 different holes to match up on an uneven handmade piece. It's best to do them one at a time. It's a bit tedious, but it's a lot easier and less tedious than if you drilled all the holes and then you're like bending and trying to force it and putting pressure on the metal to try to get them to line up. But if you want this buckler, it is for sale on my Etsy page. I hope this video was helpful to you. Maybe you learned something. I appreciate you watching to the end. Thanks.